Hello and welcome to Angular Nation. This is the Angular Beginners channel. Today we have Deepa, who's going to be giving us introduction into learning Angular. As ever, thanks to our sponsors AG Grid for making these community channels possible. And if you're interested in expert content, you can check out the experts channel. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Deepa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tom, for having me here. And thanks a lot to you and to Bonnie for giving me this opportunity. So let me go ahead.
We love you. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, let me try to share my window here. Okay. Can you see my screen? I think I can see it from the other one.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, welcome everybody to Want to Learn Angular. My name is Deepa. I am a developer. I also organize events at GDG San Jose. I'm a Women Tech Makers Ambassador. I recently joined Women Who Code Frontend as an evangelist. And here is a Linktree QR code where you can see all my social handles, my blog, my GitHub, everything. And every slide would have my Twitter handle at the top right. With that said, I just wanted to, before we get started, I want you to have some basic stuff. So you must have HTML, CSS, JavaScript. For sure, for this talk, you should be at least aware of what are classes, what is a decorator, how do you basically create a web page, right? So that's something that I expect you to have already, some basic Git. You should also know what is Node, and it's nice to have TypeScript. If you do not know TypeScript, it's not a big deal. It's a superset of JavaScript. I have a blog on Medium that you can read through it. So you can, of course, follow if you know JavaScript very well, right? So today the agenda is going to be packed, so please pay attention. I've tried to minimize as much as possible. I don't add too many text in my slides, but I will make sure that you get the basics of it. We'll start off with the web architecture, and we'll talk all things about Angular, and we'll have a demo, and we'll also talk about what are the next steps. So in this, I have something for you to take home and probably try it out on your own, right? So with that said, let's start off with web architecture. Here, as you can see, there are it's a three-tier web architecture where the client never communicates directly with the data layer, right? So if the client has to talk to the backend, it has to go through a middle layer. So in a three-tier architecture like this, it is linear, and then there are different parts. The front end is also nothing but the UI. You have the logic where your API has logic inside, and for which you would use Express or Node.js. And then you have a database where it contains data. It could be in an in-house database, or these days, very popular ones are the cloud-based solutions that are available, right? Your MongoDB is a NoSQL database, and you can also use a structured query language such as you can use Postgres or something like that to maintain your data. So now, what is Angular, right? It's a TypeScript-based open source web application open source web application development framework. It is mainly used for creating sophisticated single-page application. Single-page application is a implementation of implementation that you would add on to your web application, where you would use a single file, a single HTML document to load your entire page, right? So that's something that Angular can do. So why do you want to learn Angular? One, it's backed up by Google, and it is, like I said, it's ideal for single-page application. It's got animation support. It's a robust framework. Because you're using TypeScript here, it is strictly typed, and it also supports cross-platform framework, and it uses something called as model view controller architecture, where here the view sends, or if the user goes into your web page, it's a presentation layer where the user does something, it sends updates to the controller, and the controller sends updates to model, and the model would directly updated to the view. Instead of a 3-tier, this is very similar, but understand that it can interact with all. It can interact. The data layer can interact with the front end one. So it does also has huge community support, like Angular Nation here. We have also a lot of community support for Angular. So who uses Angular, right? There are so many websites that are built in Angular. Here are some of the examples that I wanted to bring it up. One is PayPal, Xbox uses it, Upwork, The Guardian, Forbes, Weather Channel, etc. If you want to know more about who uses Angular, you can also check out this website called as meetwithangular.com, right? And before we get started, you need to understand that Angular started as a Angular JS1. It was a first framework that was developed by Google, and it was written in JavaScript in 2010. It had two-way data binding. We'll talk about what is two-way data binding in a moment. It ran only on the client side. However, this has the support for Angular JS has ended as of today. So when people say that, hey, I use Angular JS, I would say that they are using, the one that is not supported by Google anymore, but it's a very oldest one that they have picked. But recently, and after this, in 2016, I'll show you the timeline as what are the different versions of Angular. In 2016, Google released Angular, which was completely written in TypeScript, and it was component-based. We'll talk what is component in a moment. And it also supported mobile and low-end devices, right? Here's a history version. It started off as Angular JS in 2010. This framework has been there for over a decade now. It's a very matured one. So I would say that, it has started off as an Angular JS one, then it moved to Angular, which is completely rewritten in TypeScript. And if you see, there is no Angular 3 version here, because when they were trying to release something called as they were releasing a server-side one of the versions, so they had it as version 3.3, so they had to punt it, and they released it at Angular 4. And today we have, as of last month, we have a Angular 15 that got released. So how do you create Angular project? You could use a standalone integrated development environment, such as VS Code, or you could use browser-based ones. For the purpose of the demo and how to get this thing started, I will be using StackBlitz. We'll show this in a moment. And when you go to stackblitz.com, you have to get signed in, and all you have to do is click an Angular project, and then it will create this for you. It'll create a bunch of files for you, and when you can see it on the screen as, hey, hello, Angular 15. So let's talk about a little bit about the project folder in a moment. So understand that there are a lot of files here. Inside the source file, you have something called as app. And then inside the app comes all these components that you will be creating. And by default, Angular comes with set of files called as, whatever you see as app.component with something. It is application source file, and it also comes with a module.ts, which is a root module. We'll be talking about it in a moment again. And then, like I said, every Angular application is ideally built for single-page applications. So you will see only one HTML page. This is the one that starts off with. So when you want to serve your application, it'll start off with index.html, and main.ts would have, it is an entry point for Angular, which will contain the root module, right? Understand that there are application source file, there's configuration files, and there are also other configuration file. If you see down below, there's TypeScript TS configuration file, there's environment that you can set up. I'm not going to be talking about everything, but understand that there are application source file and then configuration files. And main two things, index.html and main.ts. So we created a project using Stack Blitz, right? You can also do the same thing with a standalone, right? If you have a node downloaded already in your computer, you can you can uh, you can put these commands to have Angular in your in your desktop, or all you have to do is, if you have to install Angular, you have to say npm install. You can set the flag as global, and then angular slash CLI, which is command line interface. From your terminal, you can run the same thing. You can create it, and if you want to create a new app, you would say ng new app. Anything that starts with ng refers to Angular. Okay. There are also methods that we'll be talking about. So understand that anything that starts with ng is Angular, and you would say if you want to create a new app, you would say ng new application. And if you want to create a separate component, we'll see what is a component is. You can say ng generate component. Here I've given as example as product. You can also give the short form as ng g for generate, c for component, and the component name. By default, you can host it in localhost 4200 when you say ng serve, but you can also set the flag as port. Here I mentioned as 8000, but by default, Angular serves in 4200. Okay, so here is the architecture of Angular. So as you can see, it has a module, it has injector, template, metadata, and component, right? We'll talk each about. These are the basic. You need to understand the architecture behind it so that you can create applications in Angular, understand these things. So let's start with the component part of it. As you can see here, this is delta.com built with Angular. You can see the nav bar, and below that there are some tabs, and you can see a hero image section. There are different sections below it too. So these are nothing but components. These are basic building blocks of Angular. It forms as a tree of components. So here I have highlighted it at the top here. So you can have this as a single component, and it can have the navbar could be one parent component, and this could be a child component, depends. So this can be another component. So basically you put like all the puzzle pieces together to make a beautiful puzzle, right? So understand that components are building blocks of UI. And it also defines a class that holds the application's logic and data. So now, how do you create a component? Components can be created using the add component decorator. And here, if you can see, so every component has a add decorator with properties such as a selector, which is with this tag only that it'll select the selector, and then it'll load this component. And every component also has a template and a style, right? So it is understand that components are nothing, anything that starts with add is a decorator class. Decorators are nothing but a, you would use this as a, it'll find it as a TypeScript class for you. So it's a design pattern that allows you to add behavior and add behavior to an individual object, and it would also not affect the other behavior of other objects in the same class. So if you see there is a class component here, down here, and then it looks for this title called app, and then it updates it here. So then moving on to module. And anything, like I said, anything that starts with add is a decorator. An ng model is in all applications in Angular are modular. What does it mean? It is a design principle that you subdivide all these a system into a smaller parts called modules, and you can create them independently. You can modify them, you can replace them, right? So Angular has its own modularity system called ng module, and it has got properties again. If you can see, it has declarations. Inside the declaration, it will tell you what are the components that you need to use for this module. So for example, here I'm using app component, user model component. And you can also import components using, when you use forms or any other thing, you can import it from this. And you can also use providers such as services if you want to. If you want to use a specific service, here I mentioned it as user service. So you can also use providers. And Bootstrap is nothing but you would say that, okay, when it compiles, what component has to be loaded, right? So which component has to be loaded here when the application starts off? That's where you would use Bootstrap for. So these are the properties inside of ng module. Now, so far we talked about component and module, right? And I just wanted to give you a visual as why are we talking this, how it's related to the project. Now, moving on to template. Templates are nothing but, if you see inside a component, we said we use a HTML, right? These are nothing but HTML document where the template looks exactly like a regular HTML, but it has got some differences. It has got directives. There are events here. There could be data binding and other component tags that can be found inside of the HTML template. So understand that every component has its own HTML file, and it defines us how to render that particular component based on these properties such as selector, which is a selector that needs to be there, and the template URL and the styles that it has to load. Now moving on to data binding. Data binding allows you to define communication between component to DOM, right? There are different ways you can do data binding. One is from component to DOM using interpolation or property. Here is an example. I'm using interpolation of username and user email, and property with a value, right? You can also use attribute, class, and style. And there's also another way that you could do data binding from the DOM to the component, right? Here is an event. Here is an event data binding where I've used a click event, right? That when a user clicks, it will come from the DOM to the component and makes changes based on that. And there can also be two-way data binding. We use something called as ng model that is used to connect the view and the model, right? So if you want two-way data binding, then you would use this in Angular. So now moving on to the next one as metadata. Metadata is how you process these classes. We talked about different ones here. We talked about component. We talked about ng module. We also we'll be talking about directive in a moment. So in TypeScript, you can attach these metadata to these decorators. So directive is again a class with a directive decorator. I know it's too much, but at the same time, understand that you should write it as directive. And here, this particular code snippet, what it does, it looks for the selector called highlight. And whenever you mouse over on a text, it'll change the color of the text. So, and then you leave, it'll change the color to black. So this is something that understand that directive decorator is nothing but a combination of component decorator and template features. So there are three types of directives in Angular. One is structural, and structural directive changes the structure of the DOM template, right? Here we are using ng for, ng, you can also use ng switch, ng if, and all these are structural directives. Here, for this particular example, it would basically take the list of languages, and then we are selecting one of the languages. It'll loop through, and then it'll get the list of languages here. And there are also, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, there are also two other directives. One is attribute one, where you can add, where you can specify specified attribute that updates a specific HTML. And you can also use component directive, which are special directives that show something on the DOM, okay? And what are services? You have services, which is mainly used for server-side calls. You can use something called as injectable. Here we are using injectable decorated, and then here we are using the service as user service. And if you notice, we are also using the HTTP client. Anything that you want to make service calls with, this is how you would use it in Angular. And you should make sure that you are adding @injectable here. And what is dependency injection? It maintains a list of services, and whenever your component requires a specific service, it'll give you the instance. So far we talked about module, which are nothing but I'm so sorry. We talked about module here, which contains the root module, and then you have the injector where you get all the services, and then you have the template where you see the HTML tags on that, and then metadata are nothing but how your classes are processed here, and then finally your components are nothing but your UI blocks. So I talked about a lot about the architecture. Understand that whenever you're creating, updating a component, it goes through a life cycle. There are so many methods that it in Angular it takes, and then it goes through a sequence. So I'm not going to be talking about each one of them, but understand that whenever there is a input output changes, it'll call something called as on changes, and the first change it senses, it would call ng on init, and then it will do a series of checks, and then as you can see, it goes through the whole life cycle. It creates, and then it updates, and then finally it calls destroy when a component is going through these changes, right? It depends on if you're trying to use a user service. First off, when you click on something happens, and then it checks for something, and once it's done, it gets destroyed. So here is an example of Stackblitz that I created. As you can see, so here's a source file. Inside the application, I have two components called product list and top bar, which is here, right? And then inside, if you can see in the app.module.ts, if I have it ready here, okay. And inside the component.ts is where you're selecting the app root. If I go ahead and see here.
Sorry, Deepa, would you mind zooming in just a little bit?
Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
Oh, I can share this if that helps. Okay. Let's see. Can you see it now?
That's good. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So let me try to see if I can post this here in the chat so that everybody could have it. They can fork it. So this is like I said, this is what the page will, it'll look for this tag and then render it, right? So where is app.root? It is inside of your component. This is where this will load up this component. And how does it enter? Through, it says, okay, this bootstraps, it compiles, and it looks for this app module. From this file here, right? So if you go through this, you have the ng module, and it looks for here are the properties. We are importing the importing browser from Angular, and then you have reactive forms, you have all these things. And then you also have declarations where you would say, okay, give me all these components. App component, top bar, which is here. And then I made it very ugly because so that people can see what are the different parts. So, and then there's a product list too. So, and if you go inside, every product, I have added something in here. And you can also add styles for this particular one. You can add styles inside this, as well as you can also say that there are some styles that I added globally. So understand that if you want to create, this is your end. This will look for. And if I go ahead and make this right, and it will not load any of these components. Just watch this. If I refresh this, it'll do its thing. It's trying to run, and you will not see the components loading up because it's trying to find this particular tag. It will not be there. So see, it's not doing anything, right? And I think it'll only do the pink one because that's where it's just loading up this thing, but it's not loading up any of the components here. So that's one thing that I wanted to show. And yeah. And cool. Okay, so far we talked a lot about the architecture. We talked about the web architecture at the beginning. So we said, okay, the front end, we usually use HTML, CSS, JavaScript. With that said, what you can replace your front end with Angular. And there are also ways that you could add different backend services. If you want to, you can make it instead of a 3-tier one, we can combine it and make it as a 2-tier one. You can use Firebase. You can use any other providers like that. So I have a couple of talks in my YouTube channel as how do you integrate an Angular with Firebase. There are a couple of videos around that. If you want, you can look it up around this. And I just also wanted to talk some trends about Angular. Angular has been for so long that it's been about more than a decade or so. There are about 3 million downloads, but understand that it all depends on the global region, and how Angular is used it depends on the location that you are in. There are different parts people use Angular, and it's one of the robust frameworks, right? And who are the competitors in the market? You have React, you have Vue, Flutter is another one. There's also other libraries. If you want, there are a lot of mix and match. You can use React with what is this thing? New one, Next.js. There's something called this Nust. There is also called something called this Remix. There's also a lot of. If you take React, you have to have another library or framework to make it work. But where Angular comes with a whole set of things that you can use it. So I also wanted to bring this out. Like I said, it's where are the jobs, right? People ask me, okay, how do you know, are there any Angular jobs? You have to look for it, one. And I picked this data from Google Trends. So how many people search, right? And in the past 12 months, there are jobs around around Angular. This is global. However, if you break it down by comparison with region, there are top 5 countries that are listed, and US is in the 3rd one. India and Pakistan uses a lot, and there are a lot of jobs around there. And according to one of the surveys from the Angular team, they did a survey, and about 84% of the developers are very happy and they're satisfied with Angular. So in version 15, there are a lot of different features that are there. My favorite one is a stack trace one. That's something that really helps. You can look into this blog by Menko. He works at Google. He writes a lot of beautiful documentation, and he has something for you for the latest version too. And there's a lot more to it. And what would be your next steps, right? So start off with, if you don't know anything about Angular, start off with TypeScript, learn a little bit of it, try to develop a front-end application. And you can also learn something on state management, how to create forms, routes, etc. And you can also integrate it with Firebase and see how it works. And if you are super thrilled, you want to keep growing, you can use progressive web apps and service workers, and you can go ahead and become a champion in Angular, right? So today we talked a lot about the web architecture, what is Angular, why you want to use Angular, who uses it. There are a lot of applications, in particular with enterprise applications that Angular uses. In my opinion, I know we use Angular at work. So that's something that I wanted to mention here as well. And you should know that when people are talking about Angular, oh, I have used Angular JS, that means they have used something outdated. So they're not using the latest one. So you saw the differences around that. Now you know how to set up in a standalone. And you can also see, you also learn few commands with Angular. How do you set up from using the CLI? We talked a lot about the architecture and the hooks, the lifecycle hooks that every component goes through, as how you can create, update, and you can destroy when the user leaves, right? I wanted, with whatever knowledge that you have got today, I think that you can do this. But can you try this? Can you create this one, right? It's a small application where you can create a search for a local eatery place. When you search, that image has to show up. And when you click on view, it has to give that particular eatery place. So I created a code lab, and let me see if I can get this working. Hopefully, it's a step-by-step information where you can see how you build. It will tell you how to set your environment, how do you create your first component, how do you handle events, and you can also do a search result, how do you display them, and then finally you do some polish, and then you would have something like this at the end, right? I've given step-by-step information on this. See if you can try to follow up and try to build this app by your own. But there are a lot more. If you go to Angular official documentation, there's a lot more to learn. So this is just a beginning. That said, thank you so much. And here's my link tree. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And here are my references. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And I have a quiz at the end.
Thanks, Deepa. That was great.
And that's a very quick overview of.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a lot to cover. It's a big, there's a lot of pieces. See if anyone has any questions.
Round of applause. That was awesome.
I can share this.
Sorry?
See, everyone's shy because they don't want to come off mute. But if you look in the comments, Deepa, there's like a whole bunch of thank yous.
Thank you. Thank you. I have done a very similar talk, but I have not talked a lot about this architecture one because personally, I felt that I was lacking that knowledge when I started. So I was focusing more on the architecture one because that's where people need to understand what it is. So I think, the code lab here would help. I can pass this information, all these slides and the information. They can also check out. It's also in my GitHub. So I can add this here if you want to.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to check out the code lab. I haven't seen that before, so you can create your own kind of tutorials in a kind of step-by-step.
And here is, if anybody is interested, it's just a small Slido one. If I can start off, if you want to go through this QR code, we can start this quiz. If there are no questions, it's only 10 questions, but it's very simple ones. I just wanted to see whether, so I know if somebody learned something out of this, and
Sure.
if it made sense. So if you're up to it, I'm going to stop sharing, because if I start the Slido one, I can post this. Let me share this one. Share the link here so that this is the quiz part. I know it's a very short overview. Okay, I am going to start this. Let's see if everybody is in here. I can start this. If you give me a thumbs up, I can go start Slido part, the quiz for it. I'm going to be starting. If anybody can join, that'd be great. So I'm going to start the quiz. And yeah, there's it's a very it's 10 questions, but it's all multiple choice. You can pretty well do it. It's very simple. Hey, Vinay is here. Hi, Vinay. Good morning.
Hi, Deepa. Good morning. How are you?
So can I go ahead and start?
Yeah, I think there's six people joined, so that's good.
Okay, it's very simple. It's if I'm going to start the quiz. So Angular supports. Okay. Okay. Great. Okay, cool. Next, we got this. The next question is, TypeScript is a
You can't share your screen because it'll show us the answers.
yes, I can share my screen. So yeah, I'm running this quiz, so it's kind of whatever I've said, I made it as a quiz, so that I wanted to know if
I love it. We do this too, but with Kahoot, because Kahoot will let you share your screen without giving away the answers.
Let's see.
But it's still fun.
I think I can still do this. Hang on. I think I can. I figured it out. Tab or window, probably. This guy. I think I should be able to. Okay. Next, right? Okay. How do you do this? Oh. Okay.
Kamal is killing it. And Tito is right on her heels. And Connie will
okay, next one. It's not. It's okay. This is fun.
It's very competitive.
Okay, pay attention to this. Well, thank you. Okay, so nice. Let's get this one. Oh God, I don't know why it's doing this. What is this one? Okay, leaderboard. Next question. Oh, this is also something you have to pay attention to. Cool. Nice.
Everybody knew that one. I like it better like this because we can see. I feel like we can participate more. We can like follow along. But I want to yell out the answers, so I have to go on mute.
Okay, this is so super simple. So I think I said this too. So I made this quiz for GDSC a while back, but then I changed a lot of them for this session. I'm still kind of new to the Slido thingy.
I think it's good that the questions are easy because we want to have fun and we don't want to be stressed out.
Yeah.
And also, this is the beginners channel, but I'm also very proud of the people in this call because they're killing it.
I am glad that okay, the next question is, this is, please read the question. It says, select all properties. Cool, thank you. Okay, nice.
I'm so proud of all of you.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this too. I should have made it a little shorter. I made it as 30 seconds for each one. I think next time I'll do only 25 or 20.
Well, you told us you were trying something new.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll be doing more talks.
I have a couple actually coming up in January and in... But the beginner level talks, I'm always nervous a little bit.
Why? Well, because it's normal, I think.
Okay, this one is kind of, please, if you had noticed what I had said, then this was going to be fun. It's not a hook.
I think they're going to know the answer.
Hopefully.
It's in NG to story, Connie. I see it.
Cool. Thank you. I said that it's not a hook. A hook's, you have NG for is a directive, and it should not be a method. It should not have the parenthesis. It should be with asterisks. So that's one thing. And then, which is the one?
Kamal is still in the lead. You brought a ringer with you.
Okay. This is Angular replaces which part of the web architecture? Actually, I should have said select, but it's okay.
Deepa, I cannot select this. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it auto closed or something because I couldn't select an option. But...
Oh. Okay, you can just yell then. Sorry about that. I'm trying this something new.
You're doing great. This is how we all learn together.
Yes.
Okay, so you
no,
can't
I
click
cannot
on...
even start this thing. Hang on. Let's try this. Did I do this? Yeah, it should say.
Oh, we can see the answers. Hold on, slow down.
Sorry.
Yeah, because there were two. I was so confused about that.
I know.
I was confused. If anybody else was confused, I was also confused.
Yeah, I was about to say that I should have made it a select, and I didn't do that. So
because it was the UI and the front end was the right answer.
Yes, the UI and the front end one.
I knew it. All right.
Let's do this again. I'm not too sure if you can see this. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer for this. Anything is fine here. So you will rewatch this video, or you would you would start learning from the code lab link that has been provided, or you will go for the official documentation, which really is too intense for me. So I just read through it. At the same time, it's a lot of information. Yeah, thank you. All of the above. So how do you stop this thing? So, it does not, oh crap. My bad. I did not press this thing leaderboard. Okay, everybody's a winner here.
We didn't hear it. It's okay.
I think I pressed the wrong one. Instead of play, I stopped it. So yeah, everybody's a winner here. No, there's nothing, and you can use this whole thing.
That's great. Gold stars for everyone.
That was fun. You're right, Vinay.
I would also post this. Here, my slides, and the code labs are also in my GitHub if you want to take a look at it. I have the full. I have the whole project in there. If nothing works for you, just clone it and then run npm it. You should be able to at least see.
Hey, Deepa, if you get a chance, can you put the links for your slides and your repo underneath your event? I know they're in here, but they're going to go away. And if you put them under event, they'll stay there forever.
Oh, okay.
And then we can grab them and put them under the in the YouTube description.
Sure, I will do that, Bonnie. Thank you.
Thank you.
1 minute. And thank you so much for everybody being here. I know it's too early in the morning for Bay Area people or anybody in the Pacific. And it's afternoon for you, Tom. Thank you so much for hosting me. And Bonnie, thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I would also, I don't know where to put this thing, but I will put this. Where should I put this link, Tom? In the Angular Nation one.
If you add it to the comments on the actual event on Angular Nation, then it'll be available.
Because then it will stay there forever.
Yeah, I would go here. Oh yeah, here. I got it. This is my slide, and everything is in there. So
great. That's great. Well, thanks very much, Deepa. Can we have a big shout out to Deepa for her talk?
Thanks, guys. So much. Thanks a lot.
It was awesome. Thank you so much, Deepa.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.